and acting as well as reacting to these things. My name is Priscilla Regina Naloga. Now here to have these conversations with me, youth speaking out as the economic hardship continues to bite on, is Mr. Maxon Muhwezi, who is the NRM Youth League. We get to have you joining us this morning. You're clad in a suit that speaks political colonialism leaders. First, tell us about your suit, please. And good morning to you.
Good morning, Uganda. Good morning, Africa. With due humility, I'm happy to have the opportunity to be hosted on NTV, and also appreciate management of NTV for educating, entertaining, and informing Ugandans. Yeah, for the suit, Africa.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
Africa
you.
indeed. Also joining us for this very same deliberation is Simon Senyanga, who is a citizen lawyer, but he's also an activist on social matters, political matters. Good morning to you, Simon.
Good morning, Priscilla. Maybe relevant for the discussion is that I'm a former aspirant of the a candidate for the Youth MP Central Region.
Former, so we shall wait for the next election.
Yes.
And then we can have that conversation again. But still, you can't be a leader in your current positions, which you're doing a job about. So now, of course, we have to start off from the top. We're getting to look at government appearing to be betting on young people. And I'm glad to have a conversation with young men with me here. And so are we looking at this whole betting on young people as a growth channel or a political channel? I will start with the representation from the government.
Priscilla and the viewers, what needs to be recorded with fondness is the fact that feudalism is an economic system where the so-called feudal lords, few rich people, own huge chunks of land, and this land is exchanged for homage, food, security, labor, and all those things. Because of coloniality, in the 1890s, this system was introduced in Uganda. It grew and transformed into what we call commercial farming, huge plantations. Now in 1900, Uganda was a feudal country. In 1900, Uganda was a feudal country. And because of this, by 1986, and 1962, 72 years of colonialism, Uganda was an enclave economy. An enclave economy means a very small island, like this table, of development, amidst the sea of underdevelopment. This enclave economy was hinged and formed by the 3 C's: coffee, cotton, and copper. The 3 T's: tobacco, tea, and tourism. All this specifically because of coloniality, because it was about repatriation. You produce in large quantities, but they take. Ugandans were not hugely involved in the cash economy. They were not. Now, by 1969, Priscilla, only 4% of Ugandans were in the cash economy. 4%. We had around 7.2 million Ugandans. Only 4%. Now, because of political turmoil, because of economic meltdown, because of mass killing, because of the Hig-Haggers and Lacunas, by 1986, the country was no more. Economically, politically, there was nothing. It was called the sick nation of Africa, the lame duck. Other people call it a failed state. So it was therefore a huge and Herculean task of the current regime government to revive, improve, sustain, and also maintain the country. It is now, we are talking of more than 47 trillion from 5 billion, 1986, correction. We are talking of improved structure, infrastructure. We are talking of improved education. We are talking of security.
That's what you're talking about. Simon has been in the same time frame that you have measured. And as you come in, you've talked about the revival and the sustainability.
Because of that, Uganda can now economically sustain itself, breathe, and the Ugandans can move forward.
Okay. Ugandans can move forward. He has talked about revival, sustainability, and improvement. And in the framework of youth that we are talking about today, have you been evidence of that? Do you feel that has happened to you as Simon?
I think when you talk about the framework of the framework that governs the young people, you're talking about, number one, the legislative agenda of what the government intends to propel and to propagate amongst the young people in terms of their economic, social, and political existence as young people. So number one, you look at the supportive laws. For example, you have the National Youth Council Act, you have the National Youth Policy, you have other supportive legislations that are supposed to feed into that general system. You talk about Vision 2040, you talk about, even interestingly, the NRM, political agenda, which is the key implementation document that the current government is using. So, have we managed to achieve this? I think, number one, we haven't yet. So what happens is that the youth have been reduced into a tool of political co-option and beneficiaries of mere handouts, as opposed to active participants in key decision making. Now, that has nothing to do with just the amount of numbers of what you call the young people in political representation. It has everything to do with meaningful participation of young people in effective processes that inform their political, social, and economic well-being.
All right. So right there where you've said meaningful participation of the youth into things that are actually going to be affecting them economically, socially, infrastructure-wise. Right now we do have a debate on the Parliament's Health Committee. We're looking at the amendment of the Parliament, the public health, and we get to see some of the things that are coming through in this amendment bill. Compulsory vaccination of COVID-19 across the country, and that is definitely taking away the human right. That is definitely infringing on the reasoning of people before they get into such things in terms of vaccination, their health, and what government is wanting to do. So in terms of active participation, it was presented in February before the committee, and one of the issues brought in there by Dr. Ruth Chen is the fact that, one, the amendment recommends that there's jailing of up to 6 months for those that refuse to be vaccinated, or the alternative of 4 million Ugandan shillings. A young person, I'm sure, cannot afford that 4 million Ugandan shillings. Neither can they afford to lose time in the 6 months because of they're being jailed for having refused to be vaccinated. So let's talk about vaccination and the whole human rights versus consent to what government is trying to push for in the health sector.
So maybe first of all, vaccination is not bad, okay? What the biggest argument from our side, at least some of us, is that it's the compulsory vaccination. So the question of consent, number one, that if your consent, for example, the current bill as it is, it withdraws parental consent. But beyond withdrawing parental consent, it also says that should you get vaccinated, even out of your own choice, and you suffer any adverse effects, government exonerates itself from any responsibility or liability. So you cannot sue government, you cannot sue the manufacturer. And yet they are trying to make it compulsory in different institutions. The same bill, by the way, beyond just the penalties, talks about even the closure of borders, okay, at the whim of the Minister of Health. It talks about refusal of access to public services and even public institutions because you're not vaccinated. It refuses even access to public transport on the basis of your vaccination status. It even forces schools and other academic institutions to close down should one person refuse to be vaccinated. So, if the intention is really in good faith, then number one, why are you exonerating yourself of any liability? Number two, why are you putting heavy measures, heavy penalties, financial penalties of up to 4 millions, 6 millions, 10 millions for institutions? Why are you making it so hard for people to actually make choices? So in essence, what you're saying is that you're not making corrective measures. So if the issue is mindset change for young people and a positive attitude towards health programs like this, then don't put punitive measures, put corrective measures. Focus more on education and creating awareness so that people can make informed choices. When you talk about informed consent, these are the principles of public health, and I'll tell you this as a lawyer. Number one, give somebody full disclosure of all information. So tell me what is involved in the choice I'm going to make. Tell me the effects I'm going to make.
Let's find out from Maxon. Has that been done by government? A full public disclosure of information regarding the diseases. Of course, it's consideration of COVID-19, HIV, Ebola, among others.
Thank you so much. Before that, I'm going to come to that quickly, but he said that he talked about something called meaningful participation. My brother here is like he said, former aspirant.
No, candidate, not aspirant.
Yes, candidate, you can call it. I am pretty sure you participated in the process because you knew it was going to be meaningful in Parliament. We have, if not the most democratic system, and what we call participatory democracy, where everyone participates from top to bottom, from bottom to top in decision making. I'm pretty sure you participated
Maxon,
in this process.
as you're calling for compulsory participation, the question is, has there been full disclosure of this particular amendment regarding and consultation for that matter to the entire country, not just members of parliament and the ministry?
That's what I'm coming to. So to say that the young people participating in politics, just meaning I don't buy it. That's why I had to come and inform him that he participated in this process, knowing that he was going to Parliament to do meaningful business.
But it was not a compulsory process for him. He had an option of participating or not participating. This is a compulsory thing that we are talking about here, a recommendation. So
now that bill, I am very, very happy that we are discussing this particular matter, not just in Parliament, even us giving opinions. One, I want to agree with him that intentions of vaccination are proper to guard the citizens, to guard the population against this intense difficulty that has brought the world to their knees. Number two, we trust our legislators in Parliament, independent, opposition, NRM, that are discussing this. What I don't agree with is mandatory and obligatory vaccination, but also if you don't do it, then you have penalties. In the morning, I was listening to the Minister of Education, and yesterday she made a statement and said that much as the bill is being discussed in Parliament, when it comes to young children, parents, and that's what my friend Simon was saying, parents, the consent of parents still hovers over the entire process. It is the parent to say my child should be vaccinated or not, because entirely they understand the health conditions of these children. You get? So when it comes to the young people and especially mandatory vaccination, I encourage young people to go and vaccinate. Personally, I'm vaccinated. I'm sure you're vaccinated.
I'm not.
Oh, that's good. I am sure Naroga is vaccinated. But when it comes to Because you don't know the health condition of Maxon Mwezi. You don't know the health condition of the other neighbor.
But whether in the presence of COVID-19 or not, we still would never know the health conditions of each one of us as we're seated right here.
So in terms of information, I'm pretty sure, because we are not discussing the implementation. It is not yet passed, it is not yet implemented.
So in other words, you're saying that the government has not done a good job in dispensing the information in regard.
They are discussing the bill.
Okay.
They are discussing.
All right.
And
you were giving a second submission.
Well, I think we're talking about the principle of informed consent. So they talk about the aspect of full disclosure of all information concerning what's going to happen. Number two, the choices. What choices do I have to make in case you give me full disclosure of information? So one feeds into the other. So what happens in the current bill is that you're given limited options. Actually, whereas the bill seems to have a facade of protecting the citizen, actually it's coercing you ultimately, because when you tell me that I can't access public services, and by the way, it's not something new. You know, you guys are talking about implementation of the law which is not yet there. But I'm telling you, according to government program right now. So I don't know, thank God the Minister of Education came out, but that's only one angle of where the law is affecting.
Okay. Right.
Talk about the businessman, for example, who they are telling that in an instant, your business can be closed. You can refuse, you know, you can, you talk about guys who are doing, you talk about the stabilization of the East African community. Uganda is taking an exclusive position to actually lock its beneficiaries of the wider economy out by compulsory border closures. Now, two simple examples of how this has been done. You talk about the increase in the prices. Remember, we made choices to force people at the border, the truck drivers, to be vaccinated. Eventually, there was a strike and fuel prices went up.
Okay.
Number two, I'll tell you that in most of these government entities, actually the National Drug Authority, I think that's where your former colleague, what's her name, Shida and Uchi, the spokesperson, is it National Drug Authority? Where she came out and said, you know, you can't for us access our premises if you don't show evidence of vaccination.
That was
and finally, no, I'm telling you this, even up country, I'm telling you that actually compulsory. I was actually seeing a story from NTV. Just a minute. Just a minute. Let me just give you this. A story run by NTV, I think about 2 weeks ago, on the Panorama, specifically on your Saturday edition. Yes. They ran a story of a program being implemented in Western Uganda to actually mandate vaccinations. So the question is not about the legislation only. The question is what is happening right now. So already government has run ahead of itself and it's implementing this. So this is just merely sanitizing.
And it has registered about over close to 90% in some of these
success actually.
Success of vaccination. So there's basically then no necessity for this bill to be amended. That's one. Maybe amendment in penalties for other things related to health. But then again, it also brings into the conversation of, are we not a bit too late for these amendments? Because now we are post-COVID-19, we have better things to think about, Maxon. Actually, let's think about those things. Commodity prices being on a hike and rising every single day. Fuel prices are up there, and the young person who is trying to make themselves a livelihood, a living, you know, thing here and there. They're trying to get back into business. These things that are happening economically are affecting them to thrive post-COVID-19. So you as a young person, you who is a leader, and what would you be telling this young person who's setting up their business, and yet the government does not seem to care? Most recently, the president said, eat cassava if you can't afford bread.
Yeah, I'm going to come to that quickly.
No, let's have that, because time is not on our side.
I beg to say that COVID is still around.
True.
Yeah, that
HIV is still here. Ebola is still here.
That's what I want to clear. There is when the president mentioned that on Labor Day, anyone can interpret it the way they want. But in my perspective and my own opinion, he was specifically saying that we trim our head according to the size. That you cut the cut according to your cloth. You specifically get or eat what you can afford. You get in this economic meltdown that is informed by the global challenges, the global chains, inevitable challenges that have that have squeezed our economy.
So what is the way forward from your standing point of view?
There are so many hopes and really interventions and projections, Priscilla. We are so much expectant of the parish development model as a Ugandan intervention. It is a pan-Ugandan intervention that we believe from the bottom of our hearts is going to impact on a number of people. But also, like you have said, we are post-COVID-19. We expect robust and mass production. This mass production, you know, this economic meltdown was partly because production had to stop during COVID-19. That is a fact worldwide. Two, you have a very, very serious war, which many people don't actually want to hear. But it has impacted on society across the country. And for instance, we still have countries like China that are still experiencing lockdown. And these are trade partners of Uganda. We have Ugandans who no longer import or even export from China. And you cannot say, no. It is a fact. Then we have global challenges in supply. For instance, this war, I can tell you, oil movement, transportation, it is scuppered in one way or the other. But we have a robust and wide market now. After this production I've talked about, we have a robust and wide market of the East African community. We have seen a wide spectrum of industries being commissioned by His Excellency the President, and we are so much sure they will sack
Simon Senyoga from Maxon's prideful submissions. We get to see nothing of this is actually affecting the youth directly. But then again, there are opportunities that young people can actually tap into. The East African market, the robust industrialization that he's talking about. How do you then sensitize the young people to actually, rather than look and focus on the facts on ground, the grappling economy, how do they still get to thrive within the grappling economy and tap into such things?
I think number one is for them to be extremely conscious of the fact that they are the key stakeholders in this nation, as opposed to merely being beneficiaries from the economy. And when you address that attitude, then you'll be able to make firm stands and objective perspective and decision in what the choices that you have to make. You'll be able to read through the lies both of the government. And when I say government, I don't mean those in NRM, but I mean even those in the opposition. You'll be able to read through the lies and opinions of those who would love to lead you. I'll give you a simple example. The choices that we make as a nation are what... Sorry?
In under a minute.
Okay, under a minute. The choices that we make as a nation inform where we are going to go. So the whole launching of factories, opening of taps, boreholes, and whatever the government is doing, that's not the ultimate desire of the young people. As I said, meaningful participation is very key. You can't talk about securing your future and securing the economy when you have a legislation which is coming up, which is actually justifying now lockdowns and giving them full power to lock down people. So you talk about the boosting of the economy, the production and the supply, but actually you are outdoing your very doing. And finally, I'll tell you this. So we have interesting programs like the parish development model which are coming up. My biggest question is that the NRM has launched over 10 supportive economic programs which should have helped the people of Uganda. You have Emyoga, you have Ntandikwa, you have youth level program. All these, the biggest danger and the biggest outdoing of the parish development model, and I can tell you this, it will be this one thing. There is no supportive legislation to have it. And I've had legislators saying that, well, you don't need legislation before, but I'll tell you this. The biggest outdoing of the NRM in regards to all their programs was that they kept having the same mentality. You don't need legislation, just rush to prosper people. At the end of the day, they outdid themselves.
So at the end of the day, let's consider having an interest in legislations that actually complement all these government initiatives that are coming through, you know, especially geared towards the young people. But also the young people have the opportunities to tap into what has been put as robust industrialization here locally, and also the East African market that Maxon has tapped into. And it all comes down to the attitude. Let's first change the attitude of the young person. You who's watching us this morning, what is your attitude towards what you are seeing? Because then that determines how you're going to act as well as react. The ball is in your hands. For now, we take a short break. Thank you so much. We are